This is Bishop Michael Burbidge, and you are listening to the Walk Humbly Podcast.
Welcome to the Walk Humbly Podcast. I'm Billy Atwell, Chief Communications Officer for the Diocese and your co-host. If you haven't already, please make sure you rate this podcast, even write a review on iTunes, Spotify, Overcast, Stitcher, wherever you're listening. And sign up for our e-newsletter at arlingtondiocese.org. And you can follow Bishop Burbidge on Twitter at Bishop Burbidge, where every day you can read a short reflection on the gospel of that day. You can also follow the Diocese on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. New content's going up every day, almost every hour. And send your questions for Bishop Burbidge to info@arlingtondiocese.org. Again, that's info@arlingtondiocese.org. I welcome your host, Bishop Burbidge. Bishop, how are you?
Thank you, Billy. Doing well. Greetings to all of our listeners also.
So before we get into our main topic, the day that we're recording today is St. Valentine's Day, and I know countless dollars are being spent on candy, cards, flowers, but what do you want people to think about and reflect on today?
Yeah, it's a great day for all of us to focus on the call to love one another. Certainly when we think of St. Valentine's Day, and we do think of our married couples and who are living this call to love one another in such a beautiful sacramental way. As I always say to our married couples, your marriage is a sign of the way that Christ loves his bride, the church. So when we look at married couples, we are to see in them, see how they love one another. That's the way that Christ loves us. That's why we say married love is faithful, because God's love is faithful and selfless and sacrificial. So a word of thanks to all our married couples for that daily yes you renew to each other and to God every day. Thank you for your beautiful vocation. But, you know, Valentine's Day is a day for all of us to reflect on the call to love one another and how we reflect love in any of our relationships, whether it be with family members or friends or even strangers. And I really think this is a good day. If I could suggest to our listeners, if they would read what St. Paul says about love in 1 Corinthians chapter 13, 4 to 7. He gives a beautiful description, and it's maybe a day we all say, is that the love that I'm reflecting to others? He says that love is patient and love is kind. Love is not jealous. It's never rude. It is not self-seeking. It is not prone to anger. Neither does it brood injuries. And then he concludes, and love never fails. So may we all be renewed in that commitment today to love one another.
Thank you so much. We just had the Catholic Charities Ball last weekend, and a number of important things happened. It was the largest attendance ever. We had 1,000 people in that room, which was just amazing. We raised more money than ever. And we raised $78,000 more than the stretch goal. So it was like 1.278, I think, was the overall amount raised. 1.2 was the stretch goal. You had to be thrilled sitting in that room, seeing all these people contributing and making that goal happen.
Well, exactly. You know, extremely, so very proud to see such a large attendance on behalf of Catholic Charities and their beautiful ministries that help people of all faith in all of our communities, especially those in most need. Many of those people are lacking the basic necessities of life. I'm so proud of Catholic Charities and their great work, but we can't do that work unless we have support. So this Catholic Charities Ball was a time of, I always think it's wonderful to see the diocese all together, people from all different parishes showing that we're a family, we're a diocesan family, but especially for such a great cause. Yeah. And I thank our people who were there and people who, you know, in our parishes for your generosity that allows Catholic Charities to do this great work. And so I'm very happy with success. I was also very pleased that so many of our younger parishioners, our young adults were there too. So this next generation is going to have to continue the great work of the people who have gone before them, the pillars in our diocese.
That's wonderful to see that next generation of supporters for Catholic Charities raised up. Now, you made a big announcement at the ball. That was exciting. Tell people about that.
I did. And we certainly held it to the ball, a little drama, you know. But as many of our listeners know that 2 years ago, we launched the Mother Mercy Free Medical Clinic in Manassas.
That's right.
And that beautiful story is that it was an abortion clinic at one time where for years and years our parishioners prayed outside of. And sometimes we wonder, are our prayers really making a difference? Well, that answer was made clear when it now is the clinic, which serves life. And so beautiful. And it's been such a success in the sense of it's meeting the needs of people.
Absolutely.
We started with just 4 operational hours a week. That's how we started 2 years
Isn't that
ago.
something?
And now we're open 32 hours a week. I just learned that we've treated more than 1,200 people in 2 years, including 90 women who needed prenatal care, many of which were classified as high-risk pregnancy. So there's the
Wow.
church.
Isn't that something?
There's the church not saying, hey, we're pro-life, let's choose life. We're here to help you to choose life. 20 medical providers, doctors, physician assistants, nurses. So the reason we've been successful is because we have so many medical professionals volunteering. That's how this clinic operates. We only have one full-time staff member and a part-time staff member. And then we approached the board of directors for a free medical clinic in Woodbridge. That is struggling. That will be built in a little different model. And they've asked us to take over so that their clients will continue to be served.
Yeah, so there's this clinic in Woodbridge that's been operational for a number of years, but again, it's a different model. We're based on volunteers. We don't have that many staff members for this kind of clinic, and so they approached Catholic Charities to take it over. That's amazing.
Isn't it? And then, so with the support of our pastors, local pastors, going through the proper due diligence and with confidence that we can get the medical personnel to volunteer, and donors to contribute the needed funds, we decided to open a new Mother of Mercy clinic in Woodbridge. And that was the announcement that I made at the Catholic Charities Ball, to which, of course, everyone responded with just applause and great enthusiasm that we're able to do even more.
And that's what's amazing about it is in a day and age where a lot of nonprofits in general are trying to just hold the line and do what you can to be growing like that, and that really dominated the energy in the room. Was this is a moving train?
That's exactly
Catholic Charities
right.
building and doing new things. As a pastor too, not just we're providing medical needs, but as a pastor, that had to be heartwarming to see the support, but also know that we're growing and doing these things.
Exactly, Billy.
Yeah. So if you're listening and you want to help in some way, especially if you're a medical professional, please go to ccda.net. That's the website for Catholic Charities, where you can send an email. Or call us at 703-335-2779. It's extension 15 to find out how. But we need, primary care physicians, obstetricians, orthopeds, cardiologists, physical therapists, dietitians, nurses. If you're in the medical field, there's probably something you could do to help us out, because that's how these clinics are sustained. And we went through the due diligence, but that help is still needed. So if you're willing to, please reach out to us. Again, ccda.net or 703-335-2779, extension 15. Speaking of life and growth, this last podcast that we had, we were anticipating the March for Life, and it happened yesterday on Thursday. How do you feel about the turnout and how it went overall?
Right. So last month in January, we had our Life is Very Good rally. We marched in our nation's capital, and then yesterday we went to Richmond, our capital. To March for Life. We began with a beautiful mass at the convention center. Bishop Nest out of Richmond and I celebrated. Great turnout, including many who traveled from our diocese in Arlington to be at the Mass and at the March. It was really amazing, once again, to see the faithful of our diocese to offer such powerful witness. They were not there to protect their own rights. They weren't there for themselves. They were there to advocate for people that could never thank them.
Isn't that amazing?
The unborn, those who do not have a voice. And we were welcomed to Richmond with great graciousness, and thankful to all in Richmond who coordinated all the details.
Yeah, and this March was particularly important this year because we have a legislative session where they've really doubled down on some of the destructive and offensive bills that we saw last session. Many of them were not successful last session, and we're seeing some of them move through and some of them really gain some support in this session with the change in the legislature.
Well, yes, Billy. This is, we heard a number of talks at before the march itself that just said, how things have changed so quickly in the Commonwealth.
Yeah.
And what laws that were in place to secure and to protect life for years and years and years are at risk and have been overturned in the dark of the night in 24 hours. And so we have to be extremely, extremely vigilant of what is at stake here. One of the speakers who spoke yesterday, says, how great it was to see so many people in response to outrageous legislation this General Assembly is pursuing that undoes sound public policy surrounding abortion that's been in place, I think, for like over 50 years.
Yeah.
She said to the marcher, those who were marching, are outraged that anyone would consider repealing a law that at least ensures that if a woman is going to get an abortion, she has the right to a doctor.
Yeah.
I mean, isn't that just what
It's
you would
remarkable.
presume? She said you'd be outraged that anyone would consider repealing a law that at least ensures that women have full, informed consent, including having the right to see their ultrasound as they make a life-altering and life-ending decision. Why would anyone want to repeal such a practice, a law that protects women?
You're absolutely right.
We certainly are outraged at repealing a law that helps prevent coerced abortion by allowing women at least 24 hours to think about the decision rather than being dragged into an abortion center by a boyfriend or someone maybe who doesn't have the woman's best interest in mind.
And you think about the ministries we have here, Project Rachel and the Gabriel Project. So we minister to women who have an abortion and for the rest of their life regret it.
Right.
And to think that they would take away the ability of that woman to have 24 hours to think about it, that they wouldn't want that. We would recommend that for anybody in any major medical situation, that if there's the option to think about it, especially if you might regret it the rest of your life,
well, no,
why wouldn't you want to?
Absolutely. And that's what we say. The church is pro-life. The church is pro-woman,
Yeah.
And so, but to our listener, there's a lot at stakes here. So, we always say, stay in touch with the Virginia Catholic Conference, with our own diocesan news, so you can be a voice, not just, when we march for life in D.C. or Richmond, but every day, contacting your local officials and letting your voice be heard. I think 100% of the unborn would agree that we need to do this, that we stand up for their lives as they do not have a voice on their own.
No, absolutely. Again, if you'd like to be a part of the Virginia Catholic Conference Action Alert so you can be notified when these things are happening. It's really moving at quick speed right now. Go to vacatholic.org and sign up for those action alerts. I can't emphasize enough how important that is. On Wednesday, the Vatican released the much anticipated I'm going to mispronounce it, you can correct me, but Carita Amazonia, which is Dear Amazon is the translation, which was the Holy Father's apostolic exhortation that followed the Synod on the Amazon last year. Why is an exhortation on the Amazon something that people in our diocese should be paying attention to?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. And just as a reminder that this exhortation is the Pope's response to everything that he heard during an extensive listening session, which we called the Synod, right? So an exhortation might be to a particular region or helping to address concerns of a specific people. But by understanding what the Holy Father is thinking, we can understand how these principles apply everywhere. So this exhortation is addressed to all of us.
That's right.
It's not just to the people. It's as the Holy Father says, it's to the people of God. It's to all of us. And he lays out in this exhortation what is referred to as 4 great dreams for the Amazon region. And so I think this is both spiritual and practical and pastoral. The 4 great dreams are solutions, proposed solutions to the problems of the Amazon. So real quickly, if we can just go real. First of all, I would encourage everyone to read the exhortation.
Yeah.
I think it's very important to do that. But the 4 dreams of the Holy Father, he dreams of an Amazon region that fights for the rights of the poor, the original peoples and the least of our brothers and sisters, where their voices can be heard and their dignity advanced. Secondly, he says, I dream of an Amazon that can preserve its distinctive cultural riches. Thirdly, a dream of an Amazon region that can jealously preserve its overwhelming natural beauty. So taking care of creation, being good stewards of creation, our land. And I dream of Christian communities capable of a generous commitment, incarnate in the Amazon region and giving church new faces with Amazonian features. So it's a call to action to all of us again, it's an exhortation. It exhorts, it encourages us, it challenges us.
I thought going through it, one of the things that stands out is, I always say that the word that epitomizes Pope Francis is accompaniment, and that he wants the church to accompany the people in the Amazon, but also incorporate and have unity. And that was one thing that was neat about this is the Amazon's as remote for us as about anywhere in the world, but he was able to connect us to these beautiful things about, there's someone in our midst, I'm sure, that needs attention or needs help. It's not just folks in the Amazon.
Exactly.
It's a neat spiritual
and it's
exercise.
Ongoing call to being good stewards of our creation also.
Yeah, absolutely. Many people were waiting on Pope Francis to possibly weigh in on priest celibacy, and he did not do that in this exhortation. Were you surprised by that?
I really was not, Billy, because the discussion on celibacy and on the ordination of women deacons was just a small part of the Synod, and most of the discussion in the Synod was all these other issues that we just discussed.
Right.
But what's really interesting about Pope Francis, and sometimes I think we can miss this, is he's a good listener. He likes dialogue. And so at a Synod, for example, he opens the floor. Give me your suggestions, give me your ideas, give me your recommendations, whatever they may be. When we do that, it can get a little messy.
Yeah.
But it all comes out. And then he takes into consideration everything he's heard and, very prayerful about it. And then he comes out with, okay, here's what I say about that.
Yeah.
So he wants our focus and emphasis to be on those dreams that we talked about. And, he's consistent on his teaching with celibacy. And he's many times says, personally, I think celibacy is a gift to the church. And so I really was not surprised that this was not a part of his own exhortation. It was part of the discussion that he allowed. But when I was traveling through the diocese between the Synod and the exhortation, everyone was focused on those two issues, but we're missing the broader point. That's why we say, go back and read the exhortation. It's our Holy Father talking to us, and listen to what he is saying. What he did do, though, because they're in the Amazon and other parts throughout the world, even in our own country, there's a shortage of vocations.
Oh, yeah.
But what he says is that our attention must be, first of all, in the Eucharist, the source and summit of our lives, that which unites us as brothers and sisters. Pray for vocations, encourage vocations within your communities. And for parts of the world that is lacking priests, he's asking bishops and other religious orders and all to consider sending missionaries. Send to these parts of the world priests who could respond to the pastoral needs. So again, just an encouragement to read the exhortation. I suggest that to our listeners.
Absolutely. Bishop, one of the most impactful campaigns of the year is the Light is On campaign. And for those listening who are unfamiliar with it, parishes throughout Washington, D.C. and Northern Virginia in our diocese have special times for confession throughout Lent. It's run for many years now, and it's a unique campaign in that we partner with Washington, which is really good. What do you hope that people gain from the Light is On this year?
Yeah, it's a beautiful campaign. And I was so thrilled when I came to the diocese to see it in place. A real focus on, especially during the Lenten season, of conversion. And so conversion is possible to change, to become a new creation. It's only possible with God's love and mercy. So why not celebrate those gifts in the Holy Eucharist and the Sacrament of Reconciliation? But the unique thing here in our diocese, we really don't need a campaign as such,
right?
Because our priests continually and powerfully approach the need to acknowledge sin in our lives and to seek forgiveness and to do penance and to celebrate this beautiful sacrament. And they are available to celebrate that sacrament all kinds of times and throughout the days of the week. This diocese has this beautiful tradition of frequently celebrating the Sacrament of Mercy. And a lot of that is certainly to the goodness of our parishioners, but also the availability of our priests. But Lent and the Light is On is just a kind of a renewal of, let's bring this to focus. And I do hope we'll be getting Lent soon. I do hope it is a time of new life, for all of us, and realizing that there is no sin greater than God's mercy. God always gives us a chance to begin again.
Very good. And for those who want to find those special confession times that'll start during the Lenten season, you can, one, go to your parish website and look at that information, or go to thelightison.org. That website has a parish finder tool, and it also has an examination of conscience resource there, explanations of what confession is and why it matters in case it's maybe been a little while, and a guide for going to confession as well. Bishop, we got a couple questions from the faithful. John from St. Teresa in Ashburn asks, is it a mortal sin to get a divorce?
Yeah, so the question, of divorce and the church's teaching is one that comes up often in my pastoral visits because I think it's somewhat safe to say that all of our families, in one way or another, have witnessed or been impacted by divorce. Maybe our immediate families or extended families. It's a reality. It's not ever a good thing because when a couple is married, we do presume that is faithful and forever as a sign of God's love. But there are certain circumstances which, for various reasons, that path is pursued. And in those instances, it should be kept in mind that although civil law is different than our church law, right? Mm-hmm. A couple would still not be able, if you're divorced, if you were married in the Catholic Church and divorced, you would not be able to date or remarry unless they sought what we call declaration of nullity from the church. But it should be clear, though, a declaration of nullity is not a form of Catholic divorce.
Right.
It is simply stating that the marriage was invalid from the start, meaning it fell short of at least one of the essential elements required for a binding union. Right. So a declaration only goes back and say, wait, was there really something present at that moment that we did not know at the time that, for example, prevented freedom or knowledge of what was going on, some sort of impediment. And the declaration of nullity process is one that is extensive and respectful because we're dealing with a sacrament. But the church is there to help those who deal with divorce to walk through that process.
All right, very good.
And then, one of the things that sometimes you hear, pastorally speaking, is, well, then if it's declared null at that time, what does that say about our children? If you said the marriage didn't exist. So there's a difference between what is man-made law and what we call natural or divine law. And so when a man and woman in good faith marry, the church regards the children of that presumptive valid marriage to be, of course, legitimate children, even if the marriage should later be declared null. They're the children of that man and woman, and they're God's children.
They're still blessings, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Next question comes from several people, so I didn't pin it to any one person, but the summary of the question is this. With the outbreak of the coronavirus and annual flu season, do parishes receive some sort of direction from the diocese about whether to suspend the sign of peace, avoid dipping fingers in holy water, using the precious blood, those kinds of things? Yeah,
no, we have to be vigilant here, right? This is a significant issue. And so often what I do in situations like that, Billy, is I do like to leave the decisions, to the pastor on the local level. But this week I have sent a communication to pastors, encourage them to consider some preventive measures, such as suspending the sign of peace temporarily, not providing the precious blood as an option, like from everyone drinking from the same chalice. Additionally, it's important that the faithful know that if you feel sick, if you are seriously ill and sick, it's okay that you stay home for Mass. That's not a sin.
That's hard for some folks.
I know. But in a sense, it's a sacrifice to stay home because you're thinking of other people.
Right.
And again, that's something of a signitigant illness.
You'll have to talk to my dad about that. He's always a soldier that wars through, but I'm like, Dad, please, if you're sick.
I know. I hear that a lot. But I mean, some of the things that we did send out, to our pastors is, even our employees, if you're feeling sick and stay away from home, stay away from work, take care of yourself, get well. We ask that they post a statement on parish website and weekly bulletins, asking people with known symptoms of influenza or whatever that what we just said.
Yeah.
Consider suspending the use of the chalice, the sign of peace, having hand sanitizers at the church entrance. It's just good common sense.
Yeah, it seems to always start with the basics,
Right.
Hydrate, eat well, wash your hands, hand sanitizer. That does a lot of it, but then there's some particulars we can certainly dig
I know.
into.
There's a lot of sickness out there, and so I hope if you've been impacted by the flu or whatever, hope, dear listeners, you take good care of yourself, get the rest you need, follow the doctor's orders, and get well soon.
So this was we had a lot in this episode. Any final thoughts, and then if you would send us off with your blessing?
No, thank you, Billy. Again, so grateful for all who have made our witness on behalf of the gospel of life so powerful, both in D.C. and just this week in Richmond. Thanks for all those who are helping to support the great work of our Catholic Charities. Thanking our married couples for their faithful witness. And, as we approach Lent, for all of us begin to get spiritually renewed so that on Ash Wednesday we begin this journey, knowing that God gives us the grace to be converted, to change ways that are not of God, and to put on the new person in Christ Jesus. So we'll be praying for each other, and we'll be doing some podcasts during Lent and have the opportunity to talk about that. So I do wish our listeners continued blessings upon them, God's blessings upon them and their families, that you may know his peace and his joy. And together, let's pray for one another so that we do walk humbly with our God. Thank you for listening to the Walk Humbly podcast. Make sure you check out more episodes on iTunes, Google Play, and Stitcher. You can follow me on Twitter @Bishop Burbidge, where I offer spiritual reflections each morning in the gospel and share photos and updates of what is going on in the Diocese of Arlington. Stay up to date with news, event information, inspirational content, and more by subscribing to our e-newsletter at arlingtondiocese.org.